In space, Mr. Bond, no one can hear you scream. Except for me.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Hey guys, don't worry, I'm still alive. Yeah, they shot me through the heart, but that thing's so withered and lifeless that it really had no effect on me. Yeah, it'll take more than a few bullets to keep old Davey down, and if you've got no idea what the hell I'm talking about, well, you'll have to go back and watch the GoldenEye review, won't ya? But anyway, since I did my reviews of the PS1 Bond games back to back, might as well do the same with the PS2 releases as well, or at least the ones I played back in the day, of which there were 3. We already looked at Agent Under Fire, and yeah, it was pretty good, had some interesting visuals. And then there's Everything or Nothing, but in between them, we had Nightfire. Oh yeah, now there's a blast from the past. I don't know about you, but where I come from, basically before we became the Halo and COD fanboys we would, we had 007 Nightfire. Yeah, we liked Agent Under Fire just fine. Like I said in my review, it was a decent game that did a good job of showing off the capabilities of the newfangled PS2, but Nightfire was a different beast. We could barely put that game down, not just because of the action-packed single-player campaign, but also the addictive multiplayer mode as well, and also just because we were all hopelessly obsessed with James Bond in general at the time. Yeah, when we weren't wasting the best years of our lives playing the shit out of it every evening after school, we were running around the schoolyard pretending to play Nightfire in real life. We were that obsessed. But how does 007's second outing on PS2 hold up to date? Well, let's rev up the Aston Martins that we all definitely own, cause we ain't no BMW wankers around here, and find out. So James Bond 007 Nightfire was developed by Eurocom and published by Electronic Arts in 2002, the same year that Die Another Day come out. It was on PS2, Xbox, GameCube and PC, but as it turns out, while the versions on consoles were all the same, the PC version was actually a completely different game made by a different developer, Gearbox of Borderlands fame. Now even though I'm mostly familiar with the PS2 version, so that's what I'm mostly going to be talking about, I do actually remember playing a demo of the version on PC, so we may take a look at that as well. Oh, and there was also a version on Game Boy Advance, but did I fuck play that shite? So we get started and are immediately thrown into the action. We're in Paris, where we've got to protect this chick from some arseholes who are after her. And first thing you'll notice is, oh, unlike in the previous game, we've actually got the likeness of the man himself, Pierce Brosnan. And yeah, he looks pretty good. But then the guy opens his mouth and oh.
I need to get down there. Q, how much longer?
Well, he may have provided his likeness, but he clearly didn't provide his voice for the character. I mean, who the fuck is this? It sounds nothing like Pierce Brosnan. But if you thought his voice was weird, get ready cause he ain't the only one. But anyway, this is just a quick on-rails bit to get us used to the controls. You've just got to wait for the scope to zoom in and then press the button when it flashes up, and that's it. You do that a bunch of times and then you save the lass before she gets deep fried, and then you jump down into your possessed ghost car what's following you, and then it changes to a driving section where you've got to chase down the truck what Bond's latest bit of crumpet was after. And this is simple enough as well. Again, it's just to get you used to the driving controls. You just follow the instructions on screen, use your EMP thing to stop the truck, and there you go. And of course, since apparently being shot at and nearly dying is the ultimate aphrodisiac in this universe, once all that's done with, Bond and what's her name, Domino, nah, she's in Thunderball, Dominique, that's it, stop at the Eiffel Tower for a romantic raw dogging session. I mean, it must be, unless that thing also came with a built-in cocksock dispenser, which to be honest, shouldn't be that out there when you consider this fucking guy. Hey Q, you taking notes? And then we get ourselves a short music video, I guess like the credits in the films. And while it is a nice touch, and the effort's certainly commendable, it does feel more than a little cheesy seeing it now. But that's just me. And after that, we finally come to the main menu and have to create our agent profile or whatever. So we enter our codename and you've got to be kidding me. Are you fucking kidding me? 8 fucking letters? What the fuck, man? Why? How? How the fuck did we finally go from having 9 letters in Agent Under Fire to only 8 here? I mean, it's just... we were finally making progress! Now it's all been undone! Why'd you do this? What, when you were looking back over the previous game to see what you wanted to keep and get rid of, were you just like, okay team, what do we want to keep going forward? Fast-paced and fluid combat? Check. High-octane, pulse-pounding vehicle missions? Double check. 9 letters for your save profile? What? What absolute fucking moron came up with that? Well, we can't be having that shit. Put it back to 8 letters, the way it should be. As it says in Section 3, Paragraph 2 of the International Treaty of Safe Names in Video Games, as ratified by the International Law Commission. 9 letters. Who ever heard of such a thing? Idiot. And after that bullshit, we choose our control scheme. Well, that's nice. At least we can skip past messing around with the fucked up controller setup this time around. And then we get into the main story, where apparently some tech thing's being nicked what was meant for some space defense platform or some shit. Because of course it's got something to do with space. It's always got something to do with space with these stories. I mean, how many space stations or space weapons or whatever have we seen in this series? We had the one in Diamonds Are Forever, there was Moonraker, then of course we had GoldenEye, then there was Icarus in Die Another Day, and now we've got whatever thing we've got here. So that's 5 now. Just, what's with all these rich megalomaniacs in space? I mean, why do all these writers think crazy billionaires are all obsessed with space? I mean, it's not like there's anything up there. It's just a hologram meant to trick us into believing that the Earth's some kind of giant sphere or whatever. Everyone knows that. But anyway, the rich megalomaniac in question this time is one Raphael Drake, older brother of Nathan. Hell, he even looks like him a bit. And we've got to get to his rich kid's pad in Austria to find the super advanced space thingamajig and take it back. So we parachute in and have to infiltrate the castle. And like what we saw in Agent Under Fire, we actually have a few options for how we do it. We can just walk in the front door, slaughtering every fucker in our path, which to be fair doesn't carry any consequences whatsoever. Or we can be sneaky and jump in the back of this truck what's just trundling its way up to the castle. And which I guess must just be driving itself or something, since the only way to get in the back is to jump on the bonnet, then on the roof and into the bed. And yeah, apparently the driver doesn't give a shit that he's just randomly taken on some human cargo, and then he just let it carry it up to the castle. Yeah, that was a bit weird. I mean, if you couldn't be asked to animate us climbing in the back, why didn't you just have a button prompt or something to teleport you straight in? It's just a bit immersion breaking if you ask me. Or if you don't like that, you can sneak alongside the truck to avoid getting spotted by the guards, picking them off as you go, and then sneak around the side of the castle and go in through the side door. And we also get these bits where the perspective changes to third person for certain actions, like when you're shimmying along an edge or climbing a rope. So that's pretty cool, adds a new element to the gameplay and helps set it apart from the other FPSs of the time. You've just got to be careful if you're going to use the route that takes you around the castle, cause you'll come to a bit where you've got to shimmy past some windows where there's guards patrolling, and you've got to time it right when you go past the windows so the guards don't see you. But you've also got to keep an eye on the other windows too, because if there's a guard passing those, they can still see you and then they'll set off the alarm. But whichever way you choose, you then make it inside the walls and have to get into the castle itself, where there's some kind of swanky party going on, and this was where the game first started to get a bit irritating. See, as we saw in the previous section, we had the option of using stealth to infiltrate the castle and also a couple ways to get inside, which was cool since it seemed like the game was giving us multiple ways to play and achieve our objectives, but here, that doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, you can try sneaking around, but since it's pretty hard to sneak by the guards or get close enough to take them out without them seeing you first, it won't be long before you're spotted, and then it's straight into combat. You can do it, but it does take a lot of time and patience since you pretty much just have to memorize where everybody is and what movements they make. And the AI can be a bit inconsistent as well. Like if you get into a fight in one area, sometimes it'll alert the guards from another and sometimes it won't. And on the whole, while the first area seemed to be set up specifically for you to be stealthy, this bit just doesn't really. So anyway, once you've inevitably been spotted and shot the courtyard to bits, you change into your tactical tuxedo and join the party, where it seems nobody's noticed fucking World War III going on outside, and which we apparently have an invite to. Which if that's the case then, why did we need to sneak and shoot our way in? No, never mind. So now we've got to blend into the party and link up with some other agents who are undercover, and as such we mustn't draw attention to ourselves. But it seems the game has a very specific idea of what it considers to be drawing attention. Hey guys, don't mind me, just enjoying the party. Tyrion Lannister in the house. Look at them just looking down at me. They don't even give a shit. Oh, get a load of that. Do I know you from somewhere? Oh, and even though we can't use our weapons, they didn't say anything about gadgets. Say cheese! Smile! Have no fear, madam, these are strictly for my personal collection. No one will enjoy them but me. Hey, if you think this is cool, you should have seen the one I had in License to Kill. Look into the light. Look into the light. And yeah, of course it doesn't do damage here either. Oh, they didn't like that. Oh, give over, man. You know you're into this sort of thing. And what, you're gonna go off it over a fucking key stunner thing, but you're not bothered about a watch with a laser in it?
It's not a laser, it's a little light bulb that blinks.
But anyway, once you get done dicking around, you just make your way through the party, run into this big old boy, and then we come to this part where we get our first look at Mr. Drake in the flesh, and his Dominique! You two-timing bitch! I thought we had something special! So you wander around a bit more and find your way to the drawing room or whatever where we run into that cheating hussy Dominique. Oh, now you're gonna try and weasel your way back in, eh, you tramp? But don't worry, turns out it's all a ruse and Dominique here is actually one of the double agents undercover to find out what Raphael's up to. Oh, I knew you would never betray me like that, honey. I knew we had something special. But turns out she's not the only old friend on the case, cause hey, it's little Miss CIA! Oh, awkward! The ex walking in on you with the new girl. We've all been there, right lads? Right? Oh, and I also regret to inform you that not only do we no longer have 9 letters for our save profile, but it also seems that they've toned down the bouncing booby physics for this one. Yeah, these puppies just don't seem to have much life in them at all. I know, it's a tragedy. So yeah, sorry guys, no puppy power this time around. Puppy power! So now you've got to go and spy on this secret meeting where the stolen device is apparently changing hands. And this bit was kind of disappointing as well. Because again, it would have been nice to have the chance to move stealthily, but that really isn't an option because it's not long before you run into a bunch of guards and there's no way to sneak around them, so you just end up shooting up the place. Which usually would be fine. I mean, the combat's decent enough, but again, it's kind of immersion breaking when you're going through this place, massacring everything that moves, but nobody in the meeting seems to hear what's going on a couple rooms away. I mean, either these walls are really well insulated or everyone in this place is just really hard of hearing. Or the designers just didn't really give a shit. But anyway, you spy on the meeting, but god damn it, Miss Nightshade's gone and got herself caught. Yeah, those clowns over at the CIA ain't got shit on our boys. So then we've got to shoot our way out and save her. And this seems like a good place to take a closer look at the combat, which unsurprisingly is pretty much the same as in Agent Under Fire. You've still got the auto-targeting feature where your reticle snaps to the nearest enemy, although you've now got the option to disable it, and you've also got the precision mode, which functions pretty much the same as well. One cool new feature is that most weapons now have different fire modes that you can switch between. For example, when using the assault rifle, you can toggle between semi-automatic fire and 3-round burst. And once again, you've also got a bunch of gadgets, although they did have a bit more imagination this time, rather than just stuffing everything inside your magic bottomless phone, along with a couple other welcome changes. First of all, the button to use your gadgets is now the same as the fire button, and also the buttons to cycle through your weapons and gadgets have been switched around, so now the left and right buttons are for your weapons and up and down are for your gadgets, which as I said in the Agent Under Fire review, just feels more natural to me. So that's nice. Too bad it came at the cost of 9 fucking letters for your save profile. Yeah, cause that seems like a fair trade-off. So anyway, you shoot your way out of the castle, rescue Miss Nightshade, shoot down Vin Diesel in his helicopter, and that's the mission done. But we're not out of the woods yet, both figuratively and literally, cause we've still got Raphael's boys on our arse and have to escape on an armoured snowmobile thing. And this is just another on-rails mission, pretty much like what we saw in Agent Under Fire. You've got Miss CIA in the driver's seat, and you're just going along blasting the shit out of anyone who gets near. And yeah, it's fun enough. It controls well. You've got the Bond moment things, same as the previous game. Again, mostly just for inordinate acts of destruction. And as usual, at the end, we get graded on our performance. And like in the previous game, we get various rewards depending on how well we did. And as you can see this time, you unlock things like new multiplayer maps and skins and shit. Ah, the days when we didn't have to unlock that shit with our credit cards. Man, we didn't know how good we had it. Next mission, it's the following morning, and after taking a break to clap some CIA cheek, well, I guess if Dominique's busy bouncing on Mr. Drake's space antenna, it's only fair for us to bone down with our ex. I'm sure she'll understand.
We were on a break!
But anyway, the bad guys, who were kind enough to give us some peace and quiet for our impromptu porking session, turn back up and we've got to escape again. This time in our Aston Martin, which apparently has been parked here all night. Oh, that just conveniently slipped your mind, did it? Oh, Zoe, it seems we're stranded out here for the night. I guess we better huddle together to stay warm. With our naked bodies. So it's time for another driving mission. And much like the on-foot gameplay, the vehicle combat is pretty much the same as in Agent Under Fire. You've got your rockets and machine guns and shit, and again you just blast all the fuckers on your tail while also using your non-lethal things like smoke screens on the local police, who you're not allowed to kill. They're probably in Drake's pocket anyway, just as guilty if you ask me. So yeah, not a whole lot to say, although you can now change the camera to go first person and see the interior of the car, with the meters being fully animated, so that's a neat little detail. But even though the driving is almost identical to that of the previous game, I don't think it controls quite as well. I don't know, they just felt a bit looser and the physics seemed a bit lighter, so it was easier to go spinning out of control and crashing into shit, especially when you end up on the ice. But it's not a huge issue, it's still decent enough. So you just blast all the shit in your way and make it to the extraction site within the time limit, and that's the mission done. We're in Japan next, where we've got to protect the Mayhew guy who we saw at the meeting in Drake's castle, who's decided to flip and rat on his boss. And we also meet his bodyguard, Keiko. But it seems old Raphael's not too happy with his subordinate's decision to grass, since he sent an army of Yakuza or whatever to shut him up before he blabs about his evil scheme. So now we've just got to blast these arseholes and escort Henry Hill here to his safe room, and then we've got to rescue his, I don't know, I guess some of his geisha girls who I guess he keeps around for his special massages, who've been taken hostage, even though I'm not really sure why. I mean, it's him they're after, so why they're wasting time with these broads? And this is simple enough, but you've got to be quick when rescuing them, because if you're too slow, then the bad guys will put a bullet in them and you'll fail the mission, which is fair enough. But what I take issue with is the fact that when it happens, it'll say that you killed the civilians. Like, what the fuck, man? I didn't kill her. What, were you that lazy you couldn't be asked to add another game over screen that says, I don't know, hostage killed or some shit? And while we're at it, we might as well take an even deeper look at the combat. See, while in terms of concept it is pretty much identical to that of the previous game, it did feel a little different. Like the movement feels a bit slower and heavier, and while that means you do have a bit more control, it also made the combat a little harder since you're slower to turn and aim at enemies, and overall it's just slower paced and a little stiffer than what we saw in Agent Under Fire, and in my opinion just didn't feel quite as good. But despite that, I actually found the precision mode to be easier to handle this time around, since it didn't feel quite as sensitive, so I was able to get headshots more easily, and I like that you're actually able to move around when using it. But anyway, with that dealt with, we then escort the guy out, but it's not over yet, because then you've got to take out the assassin, and what the fuck is that? I mean, okay, I guess it's supposed to be some kind of ninja or something, but I don't recall ever seeing ninjas going around in full leather or latex shit like they're on their way down to the local fetish club.
I am Robo Gimp. There are no safe words, motherfucker. Do your worst. I can't take it.
So you just shoot this wanker all over while watching out for their flashbangs and katana, and that's the mission done. But sadly Mayhew doesn't make it, so now we've got to break into Drake's building in Tokyo to get the evidence we're after. So it's time for another stealth mission, but unlike before where you only had the option of using stealth, this time you've got no choice, since if the alarm gets raised you'll fail the mission. but it's not too bad. It's pretty similar to the embassy mission in Agent Under Fire. Again, it's no Splinter Cell or anything. You've got your dark gun, you just sneak up on the guards who are all spaced apart pretty well and shoot them in the back, while avoiding the security cameras and laser tripwires and shit, and that's all it takes. You make it up to the top floor, find the files you need, but then oh shit,
It's a trap!
and you have to shoot your way out. And I like here, where if you try to exit the area without completing all your objectives, the game's like, nuh-uh, you've still got stuff to do, dickhead. Unlike in GoldenEye, where it's just like, congratulations, you finished the mission. Oh, but you forgot to do this, this, and this. So fuck off back to the fucking beginning, you dumb fuck. But anyway, you fight your way out, have a quick rendezvous with Dominique. That's a bit risky, you never heard of a fucking security camera? And then you take a dive off the building, and there you go. Good evening, ladies. Wanna grab some sushi? Next mission, we've got to infiltrate a nuclear power plant what's been decommissioned by Drake's company, but according to the files we nicked from his building, there may be more going on than meets the eye, so we've got to get in there and find out what's going on, and this was a bit annoying as well. See, this is the type of large and expansive location where you'd think they'd give you multiple ways to play and tackle your objectives, like using stealth. Yeah, if you haven't already guessed, I like stealth games. It's just a shame I'm not very good at them. Oh, fuck off, you daft cunt. But yeah, I tried to sneak around here as well. But once again, while some missions are set up specifically for you to use stealth, others aren't, and this is one of them. I mean, you start off on this rooftop, but there's snipers all over the place. And if one of them spot you, or if you try and take them out first, then they all just instantly know where you are and start shooting you all over. And then you drop down into this place, where again, it looks like you can sneak around and take these guys out stealthily. But again, pretty much as soon as you move out of cover, you instantly get spotted and shot at. So yeah, like in Agent Under Fire, it seems like stealth is really only a viable option when the game wants you to be stealthy, which is a bit disappointing. It would have been cool if throughout the whole game you were given different ways of completing objectives and different playstyles were accommodated, instead of just at a few specific moments, which would have made the gameplay more interesting and added replay value. Anyway, you take out these guys and photograph all their cool space shit. I guess their plan somehow involves space.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
And then you move on to the next building, while avoiding and taking out all the snipers on the lookout for you. And you better watch out for these guys, cause this is the real crack team right here. I mean, there must be, considering they'll blind fire you from a mile away with a fucking sniper rifle and still somehow manage to hit you, even though they're not even aiming in your fucking direction. Although, there don't seem to be very good shots up close. Oh, and it was also here that I only just realised all these years later that you can actually make enemies surrender in this game. Yeah, if you manage to get right up behind an enemy with your weapon drawn, you can make them drop theirs and reach for the sky. And then you either just shoot them anyway cause you're a cold son of a bitch and just wanted to see the fear in their eyes, knock them out with a quick punch, or use your stunner thing to make them do a little dance. Although they'll eventually recover that way and come after you again, so I'm not quite sure what the point of that is. So yeah, that's kinda cool, even though it's largely useless and there's almost no reason to use it. I mean, as I already said, it's pretty hard to get close enough to an enemy to do it without his mates seeing you, so it really only works when the fuckers are by themselves, in which case, why not just shoot them with your silenced pistol? It works just as well. But yeah, never knew that. So you make it to the next warehouse where you just have to photograph the cool laser turret which you can then turn on the bad guys, and with that done you escape and run into Kiko again, and leave in her helicopter. Oh hey Kiko. You want to give me a massage? Oh, that's not a massage. So yeah, turns out Keiko's working with Drake and she brings you back to the building in Tokyo for no other reason than the fact that, like most of the villains of the Bond franchise, yeah, they're just a bunch of fucking dumbasses. I mean, why bother sticking him with a sleeper dart or whatever when you could have just blown his fucking brains out? Seriously, if there was a bullet in that gun instead of a dart, Bond would be toast and there'd be no one left to stop you. Hell, you could have just shot him as he crawled out of that vent or whatever it was. But no, instead you've got to drag her ass all the way back here. And for what? Just so your boss can have his daft little villain speech? You silly fucking bint. But hey ho, I guess we wouldn't have many good stories if the villains actually had a fucking brain cell between them. But that's not all, because, Dominique, have you got something you want to tell us? Yeah, turns out there is such a thing as security cameras. Oh dear. Busted! So yeah, Dominique's been rumbled as well, and Raphael orders Kiko to throw her off the roof. Well, that's not very nice. But then Dominique's like, I don't think so, bitch, with probably the most pathetic looking punch I've ever seen. And then, oh shit, Bond's escaping! Bond's escaping! Why didn't we just shoot him when we had the chance? This isn't how it was meant to go at all! So then Dominique ends up taking the express route to the bottom floor, Bond yippee-ki-yays it off the roof, then does a John McClane through the window, and now we've got to fight our way out of the tower. And now we'll take a break and look at the presentation side. The graphics are pretty good. Obviously the improvement between this and Agent Under Fire is far less noticeable than between the PS1 and PS2 games, but you can still see some subtle enhancements. It has a more muted and realistic look to it, unlike Agent Under Fire, whose art style seemed a little more saturated and cartoony. But like the previous game, the environments and character models are well detailed, and the cutscenes and cinematics look really good for the time. Although some of the facial expressions, especially from Bond, can be a bit goofy looking. Then we come to the voice acting, which to be honest is probably my least favourite thing about this game. For one, the dialogue and line reading aren't that great across the board, but beyond that, the voices, well, they're all just kind of wrong. I mean, we already got a taste of that with Bond at the start, but seriously, listen to this guy.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Kiko, where have you been? No!
He sounds nothing like Pierce Brosnan, or anything like what you'd expect Bond to sound like for that matter. Like, this is the kind of voice you'd expect to hear from some kind of gruff Special Forces sort of guy, like out of Call of Duty or something. Not the suave, smooth-talking 00 agent we all know and love. But it wouldn't have been quite so bad if they hadn't used the guy's actual likeness, like what they did in Agent Under Fire. I mean, couldn't you have found someone who at least sounds somewhat like Pierce Brosnan? They managed that in the PS1 games. The acting in those games was pretty shit as well, but at least the characters sounded a bit like their film counterparts. So yeah, it's just weird, and again, a bit immersion breaking to see Pierce Brosnan's face, but then hear a voice coming out of his mouth that's clearly not his, and doesn't even make an attempt to sound like him. But it's not just Bond, it's all the characters. I mean, you've also got M and Q, who are clearly meant to be based on Judi Dench and Desmond Llewellyn, but they sound nothing like them either. Hell, the actors in Agent Under Fire sounded way closer, so why didn't they just get them back? And just what the fuck have they done to Q? What's that daft little bow tie all about? He never looked like that in any of the films. Even returning characters from the previous game don't sound right. Zoe Nightshade sounds nothing like how she does in Agent Under Fire. In fact, she barely even sounds American. So yeah, it would have been better if they could have got some voice actors who actually sounded somewhat like the characters they're meant to be portraying. The soundtrack's decent enough. It's about on par with that of Agent Under Fire, although I did find this one to have a more distinctive Bond sound, whereas the previous games was a bit more of just a standard action game soundtrack. But yeah, as I say, it's fine enough and fits well with the action and setting. In fact, I really like the sound design on the whole. The weapons sound great, like in GoldenEye 007. They're all loud and sound really heavy, which just makes them feel a lot more powerful, more so than in Agent Under Fire. Even the suppressed weapons sound like they pack a lot more punch, making them really satisfying to use. So anyway, you just have to fight your way through this building, and this was mostly fine, except for the fact that you've got civilians running around all over the place, in the middle of the night for some reason. And apparently whoever did the AI for Natalia in GoldenEye 007 was also responsible for theirs, since they're perfectly happy to go running blindly into yours and enemy fire as well. And if you hit them, then of course they die and you fail the mission. Same if the enemies do too. And the game's still like, oh, you killed them, you evil son of a bitch. Like, fuck you! I didn't force them to go running like headless chickens into enemy fire. It's not my fault the bad guys don't give a shit about collateral damage. I mean, why would they? They're fucking bad guys! Anyway, you make it to the lobby where you're pinned down by Drake's guys, but then Miss Nightshade arrives and saves our ass. Wait a minute, you're not Miss Nightshade. Who the fuck are you?
Allura McCall, Australian intelligence.
Oh, okay, whatever. So you escape with Miss McCall here, and that's the mission done. And I like that the most emotion Bond's able to muster from seeing his alleged lover die horribly is about on the same level as if his dog just got run over. Oh, they killed my fuck buddy. On to the next mission, and it's time for you and Miss McCall to take the fight to Drake and put a stop to his evil plan. And why the fuck have we now got this Aussie broad working with us? I mean, what happened to Zoe Nightshade? She's just completely disappeared from the story. You never hear from her again. But anyway, we've got to infiltrate Drake's private island in our underwater car. And up to this point, I didn't find anything in this game to be particularly difficult. But this bit was an almighty pain in the fucking arse. So we're just driving or swimming around in our car sub and have to avoid all the patrols so they don't give us away. And that's fine, you just have to blow up some enemy subs and take out the alarm system. But then we come to this bit and it all goes downhill. So you've got to get through this narrow bit what's full of mines. And this was total bullshit since there's so many mines and not a whole lot of space to move around. And you only have to get touched once to get blown up and have to start again. And by touched, as always, I of course mean if one single solitary pixel of the mine makes contact with one single solitary pixel of you. In fact, it looks like they don't even have to touch you, they just have to get really close. Which wouldn't be so bad if the fucking thing stayed still, but no, they move around all over the place. So there'll be times where you think you've nearly made it through, but then the fuckers all move towards you and then trap you and kill you. And it doesn't even make sense. If the mines are constantly moving around, why don't they hit each other and go off, huh? You ever see Finding Nemo? That's why the mines are weighed down, so they don't move around and set each other off, for fuck's sake. And once you make it past that shit, you just continue on, completing a few more objectives like taking out some nuclear warheads and chasing down patrols, and all that's fine enough. But then you come to the last bit where you've got to destroy some nuclear submarines while getting shot at by one. And this bit was annoying as well, because you've then got to take this fucker out before you get blown up. But you've got fucking torpedoes constantly homing in on you, and it's hard to get away from them. And you only need to get hit once or twice to get killed. And then you've got to start the mission all over again. And yeah, that's the most annoying thing about this shit. There's no fucking checkpoints here. Now even though the rest of the game doesn't really have checkpoints in the traditional sense, it does by virtue of the fact that most missions are split into sections, and if you die or fail you just go back to the start of the section you're on, not the whole mission, but here it's all just one long bit, so no matter where you get killed you've got to go back to the start and listen to the stupid ass dialogue from fucking M and then go through all this shit again. And it really is a shame because it is a cool idea to have an underwater driving mission, but they ruined it by just making it really annoying to play through. But the bullshit doesn't end there, because then we've got another vehicle mission straight after. We're on land now and have to fight our way through all the island defences to reach Drake's base, and this is pretty much the same as the mission with the Aston Martin, although as you can see we're in an SUV this time. And you'd think, given it's a bigger and heavier vehicle, it would handle a bit better than the sports car, or at least be easier to control. But no, in fact it handles even worse. I mean, at least in the Aston Martin you don't go spinning out of control just from turning a fucking corner. But that's not all, since for a so-called armoured SUV or whatever, it really doesn't take that long for the enemies to drop your health. Which gets worse as you get further into the mission and you have to take out these fucking turret things, since they gradually just whittle your health down until you've barely got any left towards the end, so it's really easy to get killed, and of course when you do, you get sent right back to the fucking start again. But anyway, once you get past that bit, it's on to the next section, which is an on-rails bit where you're flying in some kind of plane glider thingy, and you've just got to blast all the shit in your way. And then in the final section, you're just controlling some giant stationary turret and blasting even more shit. So yeah, not that much to say here. Then in the next mission, we're finally inside the base proper, and this was one of my favourite missions, since for one, you've now got this badass crossbow just out of nowhere, so now I can live out the James Bond, Daryl Dixon crossover fanfiction that until now I didn't know I needed in my life. But also, surprise surprise, it's a stealth mission, where you've got to sneak through the facility, taking out guys and shutting down all the security systems. But I also like the fact that you don't actually have to be stealthy if you don't want to. Yeah, you can just go around slaughtering people without any consequences. Hell, you can even get the alarm set off on you and the game doesn't give a shit. And what's funny is, even if you choose to go all guns blazing, the game still treats it as if you're moving stealthily. Like it almost seems as if you were actually supposed to fail the mission if the alarm got raised, but the developers just forgot to put it in or something. So you'll just be going along, massacring guys, but Allura's still talking to you over the radio as if you're sneaking along after Keiko, who's just like a corridor ahead of you or something, and yet doesn't notice any of the shit going on a few meters away. Or Bond sneaking along literally just a couple feet behind her. I mean, Jesus Christ, how the fuck does she not hear you? You've practically got your nose in a fucking arse crack. But regardless of whether or not you were stealthy, you eventually get rumbled and end up having to shoot the place apart with this cool new sci-fi gun thing. Looks like something out of fucking Alien, but also fires grenades and goes into this weird Terminator vision when you aim down the sight. And then you run into fucking Vin Diesel or whatever his name is again, cause yeah, he's such a memorable villain, who you just shoot and blast all over until he checks out, and then we get our hands on, ooh, the laser rifle. Then after that, we just chase after Keiko, and it's only now, I believe, where we actually find out what exactly Drake's evil plan is, which he's broadcasting over the loudspeaker. Turns out he's been hoarding all the nuclear weapons he was allegedly decommissioning so he can take over the world and turn it into an ultra-capitalist paradise, the likes of which not even the most avaricious corporate whore could imagine in his wildest wet dreams. And the first step is to take over the space defense platform, what we saw at the start, and destroy all of NATO's nuclear stockpiles or whatever. Oh, so he wasn't escaping to the one place not corrupted by capitalism. He wants to corrupt the entire world with capitalism, even more than it already is. Great. Just wonderful. So we try to hitch a ride on a space shuttle, but then that backstabbing bitch Keiko plays a funny trick on us and drops us down into the bit where the thrusters are, where it's about to get a little warm. And this is simple as well. You've just got to hide in these rooms before the shuttles launch and burn us to cinders. Then after the launch, the doors open again and you've got to take out all the bad guys who come for you. And even Robo-Gimp turns up again.
You are going to need so much aftercare when I am done with you.
So you just survive a few more waves and then make it back up to the top bit where you play the same joke on Keiko what she just played on you. Oh, but the silly bitch doesn't get into the room in time and yeah. I'd say she's a bit well done now. Alright, time for the final mission. We've reached the space platform and have to put an end to Drake's plan once and for all. And look at James in his little Buzz Lightyear space suit. Oh great, now I need a James Bond Buzz Lightyear of Star Command crossover. But keep your fucking eyes off Mirror Bond, she's mine! So yeah, we've got to stop Drake from launching the nuclear missiles while fighting off members of his Space Corps, all in glorious Zero-G. And again, this is simple enough. You just blast these wannabe space rangers with your scary laser and wait for the missiles to arm, with this handy little HUD thing to let you know which ones are ready to launch, and then you just blast the green flashy thing on the missile and there you go. But even though it's simple, it can still be a little annoying, since first of all, you've got a limited amount of time to stop the missiles once they're armed, and if they're launched, then obviously you fail the mission and have to start again. But at the same time, you've got waves of spacemen blasting you all over, and it's quite easy to get overwhelmed, to the point where you're too busy dealing with them so you don't have enough time to stop the missiles. And you've also got to be careful since you're jumping around in Zero-G, meaning you've got less control over yourself than usual, and as the mission continues, the station starts falling apart, and you can end up falling through the floor or whatever, and it can be difficult to get back up. So once you've stopped all the nukes, and with the station about to go nuclear itself, Drake comes after you and you've just got to blast him a bunch of times until he floats gracefully off into the vacuum, and there you go. The station's destroyed, the world's saved once again, we get freaky deaky with Miss McCall. Well, it didn't take long for you to forget about Dominique, did it? And that's the end to another wild adventure. But wait a minute, we're not done yet, because if you remember all the way back at the start of the video, in addition to the single player campaign, I also mentioned the multiplayer. And yeah, if you've played it, then you know you can't really do justice to Nightfire without talking about the multiplayer. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Stop looking at my screen, you piece of shit! You looked at mine first, dickweed! Mom, he's cheating! No, you just fucking suck! Fuck you, fuckwad!
Right, turn this off if you can't play nice.
Fuck you, Dad! Where's the fucking sunny day?
So yeah, in addition to the single player, the game also comes with up to 4-player split-screen multiplayer, and the amount of content included is honestly pretty impressive. You've got a bunch of different game modes: Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, Demolition, Uplink, King of the Hill, etc. There's a nice range of maps to choose from, including locations from the films, like Fort Knox from Goldfinger and Atlantis from The Spy Who Loved Me, and they're all pretty good. They're quite large and expansive, with plenty of opportunities for camping and sniping and various other strategies. You can play as characters from the game and also classic characters from the films, which inevitably led to arguments back in the day over who gets to be the coolest character.
I wanna be Jaws! No, I wanna be Jaws! Fuck you! I hate you!
And of course, as I said earlier, all this is unlocked from getting high scores in the single player. Yeah, remember the days when you unlocked shit by actually playing the game instead of reaching for your card or grinding for hours on end? And let me remind you that this is from fucking EA. Yeah, the same fuckers what brought us Battlefront 2. Man, just imagine if they brought this out today. Fuck me, now there's a depressing thought. You can customize the game rules and player and environment mods, and of course, if you're a lonely fuck like me and you've got no one to play with, you can play against AI bots that function pretty well, and are honestly quite formidable. So yeah, it's a lot of fun that you can easily sink tons of hours into, just like we did back in the day. Probably too many to be honest. And yeah, if you can get your hands on the game and are lucky enough to have some guys who are willing to play it with you, it can be a blast. So anyway, that was 007 Nightfire on PS2, and in conclusion, yeah, it's pretty, fire as the kids like to say these days, eh? But yeah, it's about as good as I remember, and in all honesty, it's probably the best Bond FPS, at least of the PS2 era and before. It still looks and sounds good, the combat's fun and exhilarating, even if the movement and aiming is a little clunky now, but that's just with it being old, and the multiplayer kicks ass. I did find some aspects of Agent Under Fire to be a little better, but while that game seemed more like just a standard action game with some of the Bond trappings to set it apart, this seems more like an authentic Bond adventure in terms of story and themes. It's not perfect, it can be annoying at times. I wish we could have been given more opportunities to choose how to tackle our objectives. The characters, especially the women, are mostly just cardboard cutouts, and the voices, yeah, the voices. But to be honest, none of that's enough to drag the game down that far. So yeah, if you never played it or just want to relive some of the good old days before the AAA game industry went to shit, then yeah, you should give it a go. But we're still not done, since I said we'd take a quick look at the game on PC, and while it is a different version, it's still similar enough that I don't think there's enough material to make it its own video, so I'll just cover it here and try and compare the two. So like I said, despite being made by different developers, both versions are very similar. The gameplay is largely the same, they're both FPSs, albeit with some different weapons and gadgets, and they follow the same story, although there are some differences in the missions. The vehicle-based levels are completely absent, replaced with some extra missions we don't see in the console version. Like for example, after infiltrating Drake's castle, rather than having the snowmobile and Aston Martin missions, we instead have to break into an airfield and steal a plane to make our escape. And also, some of the missions that carry over from the console version are longer and more fleshed out, sometimes for the better, as is the case with the power plant mission, where you actually end up going through Drake's astronaut training program thing, and then fighting Vin Diesel in Simulated Zero G, and sometimes for the absolute fucking worst, like when you're escaping from Drake's tower. See, whereas in the console version, it's a fun and fast-paced action set piece, here it's a fucking slog that drags on for way too long, because in addition to escaping the tower, they've got you going from floor to floor, fucking around, destroying servers and shit. And then you've got this bit where you make it down to the parking garage. And there's a certain word I want to use to describe this bit, which is sadly heavily frowned upon these days. So I'll just say it's stupid. Very, very stupid. Like the absolute weapon who came up with it. So basically, you've got to blow up these white vans just for some reason, all while there's this black van driving around with a fucker sitting in the back firing a fucking minigun at you. Or more accurately, just firing randomly and you just happen to occasionally be standing in the line of fire. So anyway, you torch the vans, but does the game tell you what to do next or let you move on to the next area? No. So what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Do I have to destroy the black van? You'd think so, but too bad nothing seems to have any effect on it. You can bounce bullets and rockets off the thing all fucking day and nothing will happen, so what the fuck? Well, turns out, yeah, you actually have to destroy the van. How, you ask? Well, rather than, you know, shoot the driver or the engine or fuel tank or anything remotely logical, you actually have to take out the guy in the back what's firing the minigun. Well, good luck with that shit, cause this fucking thing's driving around so fast you've barely got a second to get some fucking rounds in there. So you've just got to wait for the thing to pass you by so you can fire off a few shots and just hope to hit the guy. And when you finally do take him out, the whole thing goes boom, cause that's how that works. So yeah, just why? What was the point of this bit? In a mission that was already way too long to begin with? I don't get it. And I know I've spent ages on this, but I just really needed to rant about it. So again, to the absolute drongo, I love that word, who thought this shit was a good idea. The combat's mostly the same, although playing on a keyboard and mouse as opposed to my usual DualShock 4 did make it a bit slower paced. Although I did also find it a little easier, since pretty much all I had to do to get headshots was to go point click, point click, point click, despite the enemies also seeming a bit more bullet spongy here. Graphically speaking, the PC version is superior, which isn't much of a surprise considering that generally PCs have always been more powerful than consoles, meaning the environments are more detailed and are even pretty destructible, which is cool, and the cutscenes look a little better as well. But would you believe that the AI somehow manages to be even more smooth-brained than in GoldenEye 007? Yeah, the enemies did exhibit some rather odd behaviour over the course of my playthrough. One notable example being that they'd keep insisting on setting off the alarm on you in the middle of a firefight, even though the alarm's already been set off. Oh, and the physics are pretty fucked up as well, in a funny sort of way. Whee! Hey, look at him go! So on the whole, while I do think the console version is ultimately better, the PC version, despite not being very well paced at times and having some rather interesting quirks, is still mostly a fun time. And if you haven't played it, I'd recommend you give it a go. But we're still not done, cause you know what? Just for completionist's sake, I gave the Game Boy version a go. Yeah, and how does it compare to the other versions? Well, just look at it. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I think I'm gonna stick with the console version. Although, to be fair, it is meant to be viewed on a much smaller screen, and I guess it's impressive that they managed to get it to look, sound, and play at least somewhat like the other versions. And would you believe that this is the only version that lets you have 9 fucking letters for your save profile? I mean, what the fuck? They can't manage that shit on home consoles, but they can on some shitty little portable version? Just why? 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 Well, that turned out to be a lot more work than I was expecting, but I made it through it in the end. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, then leave a like. If you didn't, then tell me to go fuck myself. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we're making good progress. So if you enjoy my content and have yet to subscribe, I will be extremely grateful if you would do so. And as always, thank you so much to everyone who already has. And in case you missed it, I recently started a Patreon, so if you would like to support my work even further, I would very much appreciate it if you would consider donating. See the recent video I uploaded for more information. Thanks again for watching and... What's that noise? Oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me!